Hello and welcome to Smart Money's live event on how to save $1,000 or more and what you could do with it. I'm Meredith Bodgis from Fidelity's Smart Money team, and I'm so happy you're here with us today. I'm coming to you from New Jersey. Let us know where you're tuning in from in the comments and what's your goal for your future $1,000 savings. Speaking of, the chat is a great place to put any questions you might have as the event goes on. We'll try to get to some of them later. For now, I want to say no matter what your goal is for your money, saving up enough to reach that $1,000 threshold can be daunting. We're here to make it a lot less scary and a lot more possible. In the next 45 minutes, we're going to help you learn how to cut your expenses in little ways so you don't feel like you're sacrificing. Pick up saving tricks to make it simpler to set aside more money. Find opportunities to earn extra income to help accelerate your savings. Decide where you could put your money to help it grow. And we'll also discuss what you could do with your cash once you've saved it. Now, that's a lot to cover. So let's get started by meeting the two people who are going to school us in all these things, Courtney Mays and Braxton Roan. Courtney is a workplace financial consultant here at Fidelity. That means she regularly shares her insights with 401k participants, so we're lucky she's with us today. We're also very lucky to have Braxton Roan with us. He's a vice president and private wealth management advisor assisting clients with their financial planning. Courtney, what did you do with your first $1,000 you saved up?
I kept it in my savings account. I believe emergency savings is the most important piece of a solid financial plan. And it gave me a lot of comfort to know I had a little something stashed away for a rainy day.
And Braxton, what did you do with the first $1,000 you saved up?
Uh-oh, I'm going to be vulnerable. All right. I bought a bunch of clothes. That's what I did, right? It did have a lasting impact. That what I would call a poor financial decision had a lasting impact on me. I'm thinking about how quickly that wardrobe went out of style, or my friends borrowed it and didn't bring it back, or it faded in the wash. So it did, though, cause me to make good financial decisions moving forward. So I'm pretty proud about that.
And I paid my now husband's portion of the rent one month in hopes he could save for an engagement ring faster. I think he proposed 6 months later, so mission accomplished-ish.
Don't talk about
Okay. Okay, let's really get into it. I want to start with why we're talking about saving $1,000 in the first place. Is there something magical about that number, Courtney?
Yeah. So the beauty of building up $1,000 in your emergency savings is that it gives you a cash cushion to tackle unexpected expenses that life can throw your way, which puts you in a better situation when things get tight financially. So, if you're just getting started, consider this the start of your emergency savings, which is a cash buffer for life's unexpected moments like a medical, home, or car emergency. Sometimes it can be tempting to stop saving for emergencies to focus on paying down existing high interest debt like credit cards. A benefit, though, of prioritizing savings with each paycheck is that when something unexpected pops up, you have cash and won't have to go further into debt. Once you have your emergency savings, your next goal might be to save up $1,000 for something else, like a vacation or another fun purchase.
Okay, that's why we're focused on that number to start. So, how can you begin to build that savings, Courtney?
Set up automatic contributions no matter how small. If you can afford to put $5 aside each paycheck, that's a great start. Celebrate that. You can always increase your contributions later as finances allow. Next, look for easy cuts in your expenses. Comb through your bank accounts and bills. Are you paying for something that you don't use or need? I recently found subscriptions I forgot that I'd even signed up for. So make time to cancel these. Every couple of months, I sit down and ask myself, what are my financial priorities? I write them down and then I put them in order. And then while looking through my bank accounts and spending habits, I ask myself, is my money being spent in alignment with my financial priorities? And importantly, what is one small tweak that I can make to bring my spending closer into alignment with what matters to me? So, for example, while recently reviewing my expenses, I noticed I was spending more than I realized on what I'll call convenience. So, if I was thirsty, I'd stop and grab something to drink. If I was hungry, I'd pick up a little snack. I live in New York City, and if I was late, I would grab a rideshare service rather than walking or taking the subway. So, I've started to set aside an hour each week to prep some drinks and snacks to take on the go. And I've been trying to allow more space in my schedule to get from point A to point B. It's important for me to remind myself that little tweaks compounded over time add up to more space in my budget, which also allows for more savings and less stress.
Sounds like we all need to make a date with ourselves to go over what we're being charged for that we don't even care about. Braxton, what else could you do to build that savings?
Well, the next thing I think is important for us to do is we need to build a budget. We want to try our best to stick to it. So I like the KISS method, which is keep it simple, silly. The goal there in keeping it simple is to make sure that it doesn't feel like a chore. So let me give you a few basic steps. You don't have to worry about screenshotting anything or writing anything down. You can download all these slides at the under your video player. And also, if you have an email address that you use to sign up for the event today, we'll make sure to get you a replay when it's all ready. So let me get into the steps. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to figure out what your monthly income is. And I'm talking about your take-home income. This is after taxes, after paycheck deductions like medical insurance, etc. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to get an idea of what all your essential expenses are. So these are going to be things like your mortgage and your rent, utilities, your car payment, alimony, child support payments, any minimum payments that you're making on any student loans or credit cards, etc. Now, Fidelity's guidelines say that these essential expenses should add up to about 50% of your take-home pay, but it's okay if your expenses are a little bit more than that. Now, here's the last step. You're going to pick a number that feels comfortable for setting aside for your savings if there's any money left over. And the bigger that number is, the faster you'll be able to get to the $1,000 or whatever the goal is that you're trying to hit. So I'm going to give you a few more guidelines. Fidelity's guidelines suggest that at least 5% of what your take-home pay is should be set aside for that emergency cash buffer that Courtney mentioned a little bit earlier. And it's okay if you can't get to that right now, but we want to make sure that we're striving to get to that point. If you have other things that you're saving for, like a future vacation or a big purchase that you want to make, then you probably want to save a little bit more than that 5%. We've got to be flexible here. We got to leave room for things like the non-essential expenses, like going out to dinner or taking a weekend away. The budget is supposed to make you aware of your spending habits. It's not to make you miserable. So we don't want to do that. And I'll say another good tip would be you want to avoid creating unrealistic spending limits or things that you want to save for. We want that goal to be achievable, because if it's not achievable, then it's going to feel useless and you're not going to stick with it. Now, we do have a tool that you can use to help make budgeting easier for you. And it's going to be on, I think it's on this slide here. So this will allow you to plug in your income, and then it's going to give you a general budgeting framework. This is going to be based on national estimates. So you can tweak this to what your actual spending habits are. And if you wanted to get a little bit more specific, you can add in things like your bank account to get better suggestions.
I want to go back to something you said earlier, Braxton, about how essential expenses should add up to about 50%. That might sound low, especially right now when things like housing and groceries and everything else are so expensive. What if you what if you don't have any money left for saving? What could you do, Braxton?
Well, I'd say one idea would be you want to get an idea of what essential expenses you can lower. And the biggest essential expense that I've seen individuals have is typically their rent. So, for example, it could be an awkward conversation, but you can see if you can negotiate down your rent payments. If you love the place that you live, you You can offer to sign a longer lease and see if they'll give you a cheaper monthly payment. Or maybe you can offer to promote your community that you live in on social media, and they'll give you a referral bonus if somebody sees your post and they want to rent there. So just thinking outside of the box. Another outside of the box idea might be you taking some of the caretaking of that property off the property owner's plate. So maybe you're mowing the lawn and maybe you're painting the walls and taking care of the small fix-ups that need to take place around the property. And last, and I'm sure my mom's probably around here somewhere, I might refer to her again. So we want to remind that landlord that we've got good home training, right? We want to tell them that we are a great tenant, and we are great tenants. So even a small percentage that you can take off your rent could lead to a lot of money that you can free up to save for your goals. So consider it.
Those are such creative ideas. Thank you. Another big expense some people have are student loans. Any ways to lower your monthly payments if you need some breathing room, Courtney?
If you haven't already, start researching federal repayment plans like the SAVE plan and other income driven repayment plans. There's also something called a graduated repayment plan where you start with lower payments, which gradually increase. You could also see if there are career based programs you might qualify for that offer debt cancellations. This tip might be especially helpful for our teachers, nurses, and other public servants out there.
I know being a driver has become more expensive lately too. Any ways to keep those costs down, Braxton?
Well, yeah, you got a few. And I would say if you feel like the cost of insurance payments have increased, you're absolutely right. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, insurance costs are 22% more expensive than they were in March of 2023. So it is a real thing. And we're starting to feel that in our pocketbooks, no question. So insurance companies may offer you a discount for having something like a tracking app that you have on your phone, or you might have a tracker in your car. I understand it could feel like an invasion of privacy, but we're trying to save money. We're trying to get to our goals. So something to think about. Or maybe just call up the insurance company and ask them if they have a better rate for you. And if they don't, then call a competitor. Like it's okay for you to be a little aggressive in trying to achieve your goals.
Yeah, advocacy is super important. You can also look to pay for less in gas. Some gas stations will give you a discount for paying in cash or with a debit card. You could also look for ways to boost your miles per gallon. For example, you could make sure your tires are properly inflated. You could be thoughtful about how quickly you accelerate. And of course, you can remove any junk from your trunk.
Great reminders. I know for my family of five, one of our biggest expenses is groceries. We got to feed these people.
Yeah.
Braxton, are you having the same experience with high food prices? What
Of
are your
course,
ideas to keep costs low?
of course I am. Of course I am. Of course I am. Right. So here's where mom comes back in. I start my career. I'm on my own. I'm a big boy. I've got my big boy job, and she's trying to help me make wise financial decisions. So she taught me that I can go to the grocery store and I can get whatever it is I want. If I want a T-bone porterhouse steak, I can go and get it. But she also set the expectation while I was on my own that if I go crazy at the grocery store and got a whole bunch of stuff, that the expectation is that I eat what I bought. And I have adopted that principle for my family. We save a ton of money by doing that. Just as an example, I can go to our local warehouse club and pay $75 or so for ribeye steaks, and I put them in my deep freezer. It's hard to believe, but my family of four get about 2 meals out of me purchasing those steaks. So I don't know of a time period as of lately where we've gone out to eat and I've spent less than $120 at a restaurant for my family of four. So if I'm eating at home, I'm still feeling very special because I'm eating a ribeye steak, but it's less than half the cost of me going out. So kudos to Janie Roan. Thank you very much, Mom. That's still a principle that applies. I hope some other folks can adopt it here today.
You gotta eat what you buy. Makes sense to me. Staying on the home front for a minute, what are some ways to help with rising utility bills, Courtney?
Smart Money does have some tips on this. So you can unplug appliances that suck up electricity even when they're turned off, which adds to your electric bill. We sometimes call those energy vampires. You can also see if you're eligible for a free energy audit from your provider. So your gas or electric company may send someone to your house for free to help you make your home more efficient.
Great. That covers a whole range of common essential expenses. But what qualifies as essential can be different for everyone. You really want to look at your own expenses and think about what you personally consider essential to you. Now, what about the fun stuff like going out to eat or getting together with friends? Courtney.
If you don't want to cut out a non-essential expense entirely, it can be fun to get creative and see if you're able to lower them. For example, I recently started inviting friends over to cook rather than going out to eat. We cook enough to share a meal during our time together, plus some leftovers for each of us to snack on throughout the week. It's been a fabulous way to lessen the work of cooking and cleaning. It's less expensive than going out, and we leave with a meal or two already prepared for the next time we're hungry. If you still want to go out to eat, there are some tips that might be helpful. You can perhaps shift when you want to go to take advantage of happy hours or avoid expensive holiday pricing and crowds on occasions like Valentine's Day or other holidays. Be careful with those new self-ordering kiosks and apps. According to a study by Harvard Business Review, one restaurant found that people spent 20% more when diners ordered there. If your dinner involves drinks, see if there are any local restaurants that allow you to BYOB, which can save you from marked up alcohol. You can also perhaps look into mocktails. Keep in mind, if you do bring your own alcohol, you might have to pay a small corkage fee. You can also find some new affordable ways to have fun, like learning a new skill. You can look up free drawing tutorials or dance classes online. If you're outdoorsy, you can also plan a hike, a bike ride, or perhaps a local picnic at your park.
These are really smart cost cutters. I'm definitely going to be using a lot of these in my life. Okay, we've chipped away at the money we're spending. Now, how do we make sure that the leftover money is getting saved, Courtney?
There are a few things you can do. My favorite is to set up a separate account for your savings. When you have a separate account for your savings, that can help to stop you from dipping into it when it's not necessary. Consider giving your savings a fun nickname that relates to your goal. This can establish an emotional connection to your savings goal, and then we might be less tempted to withdraw from that account and spend the money on something else. Some ideas on fun nicknames might be a fancy graduate degree, oceanfront villa, or perhaps shiny new car. You can also automate transfers because it can help you reduce the temptation to spend that money elsewhere. It can lessen that I need to save money stress because you're already doing that. You've got that taken care of. It can create a healthy savings habit that's not just for this goal, but for future goals. And remember that decision fatigue is real. If you're having to remind yourself to save every single time you get paid, it can be easy to think of reasons as to why saving this paycheck might not make sense. So set up your finances so it's easy and convenient to save and slightly inconvenient to pull from your savings. That said, if you do decide to auto transfer money from an account into savings, remember to keep tabs on the amount coming out and when it comes out so that you don't run into the overdraft fee situation. Also, try to avoid dipping into your savings regularly. Change your mindset so that pulling from savings is considered a last resort.
Good stuff. If I'm doing the heavy lifting of cutting expenses, I want an account that's going to earn me some interest. Braxton, what do you think?
Well, we got some options, but first and foremost, Courtney May is worth the price of admission, sister. I'm changing the name of my savings account to Oceanfront Villa account. That's the first thing I'm doing. So we do have some options. So let's get into what a savings account is. So you're gonna have money in this account. It's gonna be generally easy to access. and you can open a high yield savings account. It's going to provide you with a competitive interest rate. So your money's going to earn money without you really having to do too much. And you're going to get something called FDIC insurance, which is Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation insurance. This is going to give you $250,000 of protection per depositor, per institution, per ownership category. So generally with the savings account, you can't lose money, it can only grow, but it might not grow as fast as some of the other options that Courtney and I'll continue to share. Courtney?
Yeah, so an option for this would be a cash management account. This is a type of brokerage account that's designed as an alternative to traditional checking accounts. It offers competitive rates on the cash in the account, sometimes with different options for different needs. Fidelity's cash management account, for example, offers different core positions. Core is just where the cash resides when it's not actively invested. An example of this might be the FDIC insurance, or you can use the Fidelity Government Money Market Fund that typically offers a higher yield. You can also get a debit card and check writing with the account, both of which are free with Fidelity. The Fidelity Cash Management account also offers reimbursed ATM fees, free bill pay, and no account minimum or maintenance fees. Plus, you can easily link your account to peer-to-peer payment apps.
So those are the accounts, but are there other ways to earn more off the money you're saving? Braxton?
Yeah, I think we got a couple more options. I'd say the next one I would do well to mention would be a money market mutual fund. So what this is it's a type of mutual fund that's going to invest in short-term debt. So you need to think about this as being debt that's 1 year or less. So I'm going to give you a risk scale here. This is risk, right? So if I'm here on this end of the scale, it's going to be more volatile. Here it's less volatile. Right, savings accounts probably going to be way down here, pretty non-risky. Money market mutual funds are going to be right next to this. So these are among the lowest volatility types of investments that you can have. These are going to invest in different securities whose interest payments are sometimes exempt from federal taxes and sometimes also exempt from state taxes. So it could be a good source of stable tax efficient income. As well, you're going to get some diversification inside of these funds. Unless you buy a money market that's focused on the US Treasury, which is a single issuer, you're going to get a broad array of diversification. So we won't have all of our eggs in one basket. Now, unlike a CD, a certificate of deposit, or a savings account, a money market mutual fund is not going to be FDIC insured. So although the goal of that fund is to invest in higher quality securities, and the goal of the fund as well is to seek to preserve the value of your investment, you can lose money. There's no guarantee that the $1 that you put in will be $1 when you redeem your shares. But I do want to remind you kind of what that risk scale is. Again, if we've got savings accounts here, money market mutual funds are pretty close to that. So they're going to be not very volatile.
Thanks, Braxton. And you mentioned CDs. I just wanted to clarify what exactly that is. So a CD stands for a certificate of deposit. It's really to be used for after you surpass that $1,000 in emergency savings threshold, and I'll explain why in just a moment. CDs offer fixed rates of return, principal protection, and FDIC insurance, but your access to your money is more limited because you agree to allow the institution to hold your money for a certain period of time. In other words, you are lending them your money. That time period can range anywhere from 1 month to 20 years. So this might not be the best option for quick cash, but it is a good option to know.
Thanks for all these different choices. Lots of pros and cons to each one. So, no matter what account you choose, beyond choosing an amount to put towards savings each month and perhaps automating it, what other ways are there to help build your savings? Braxton, any ideas?
Sure. So whenever you get a bonus or whenever you get a windfall, like a birthday gift or holiday cash or a tax refund, you can consider putting that towards your savings. That's a very, very good, smart idea. And you can also set up savings rules for yourself. Like one of them could be that whenever you pay for something with cash, you put the change immediately back into your savings. I know that's one that we use at home. I got another one. When looking around social media recently, I saw that there's quite a few individuals that are taking part in savings challenges. So I think that's a really good idea. I found one that I like. It's a 52-week money challenge, and I think it works is similar to where I think week one you put away $1, and then week two you put away $2, and week three, and so on and so forth for the year. And if you do something like that by the end of the year, again, you're going to have a little bit more than $1,000 stashed. So very creative, participating kind of in the broader ecosystem there of financial knowledge, and we're getting to achieving our goals. So good thing.
These are all such awesome tips, but let's be real for a second. Not everyone earns enough in the first place to set aside much savings at all. What do we suggest for people in this situation, Courtney?
Just remember that no matter how little you're able to save, every little bit adds up, especially if you stash it in an interest-bearing account. My favorite expression is consistency compounds. But if you want to make a little more money, you could try negotiating a raise at work. It can be helpful if you choose to go this route to lay the groundwork first. Keep a detailed list of accomplishments so you can point to specific ways that you add value to the company. Also, make sure the conversation doesn't come as a complete surprise. It could be helpful if you share with your manager that you'd like to set up a meeting a couple of months prior in order to discuss your compensation. You can also look for ways to increase your income outside of your 9 to 5. Some possible gig ideas could include becoming a dog walker or pet sitter, becoming a rideshare or delivery driver, seeing if anyone needs a house sitter. You could make some extra money just for a change of scenery and perhaps watering a couple plants. You could tutor students in your area of expertise. If you're a good writer, you could edit people's cover letters and resumes. You could be an extra in a TV show or a movie if you're looking to get famous. You could also make money online from the comfort of your couch. This might include taking online surveys, taking on transcription work, and typing out audio files for businesses, or even testing out some new mobile apps.
And look, like we're a nation of hustlers. Like that's not a bad thing. You could try to sell some of the unused stuff that you have. Online marketplaces exist now where it makes it easy for you to go on and list your brand name clothing that you're no longer wearing, or you might have some collectibles that you have that are collecting dust, or there could be electronics that you have that you haven't powered up. Somewhere out there, there's going to be somebody that may be willing to pay for the junk that you have. So embrace it. Another source of cash that I think is pretty interesting, it goes often overlooked by individuals, is gift cards. I've got a ton of gift cards at home that we might not use or might not want. There's online services that exist that will buy your unwanted gift cards and let you turn those into cash. So a little different, but you can do that. Another one, again, is to consider thinking outside of the box. Maybe you're renting some of your appliances. Maybe you're renting your lawnmower. Your gaming systems can also be rented out for cash. So think outside of the box. Look at that broader goal that we're trying to achieve, and let's run toward getting it.
Love these ideas to bring in extra cash. I would never have thought of them. Thank you. All right, let's fast forward and pretend. Congratulations, you've saved up $1,000. Now what? What are some ideas for using this money smartly, Braxton?
Sure. So we've got a slide that we're going to put up right now. And I want you to think of this as a step-by-step guide that will give you a framework to tackle these items. Now, you don't have to hit every single item on this list, but if we start with number one and keep moving forward, I think it's going to get us to a good place. So number one, full credit and kudos to Courtney, we've got to start an emergency savings account. We want that account to have at least $1,000 or 1 month of what our essential expenses are. And we know what those are. Now I'm going to lean in for this next one. I want everybody paying attention. Number two is if your employer has a retirement savings plan and they have a match, as in you put money in and they're giving you money, then I want you to contribute at least enough to capture that full match that your employer is providing you. We're not leaving any money on the table, right? We're trying to run toward achieving our goals. Number three, pay down any credit card debt fully. I want you to start with the highest interest rate. Number four, we want to fully fund that emergency savings, and what that looks like is having 3 to 6 months of our essential expenses stashed away. And then number 5 is what we want to start to do is chip away at any higher interest debt, around 6% of interest or higher. So if you've got a healthy amount of your emergency savings account, and then you've paid down your high interest credit card debt, and you're capturing your full employer match from your workplace retirement savings account, then you can start to move on toward your other longer term goals or even shorter term goals, whatever those may be.
Braxton, I love the step-by-step plan that you laid out. That's super helpful. It's also important to remember that where you store this cash matters. So Braxton talked about different options for keeping your cash while you're building up to that $1,000. Once you have it, think about your time horizon for what you want to do with your money next. How quickly might you need access to that cash? If you're saving for a short-term goal, like an exciting vacation or your emergency savings, then those options we just went through would be perfect. But if you're saving for something longer term, say 3 years or more down the line, then you could start to consider potentially helping your money grow more through investing in things like stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. It's very important to do your research, but you could do that in an investment account like a brokerage account or a retirement account. Fidelity has lots of information for beginner investors. You can check out fidelity.com/smartmoney to learn more.
So it looks like we have some time to take questions from the audience. We got a lot of great questions through the registration process, and we've been seeing your questions come in today during our discussion. Lots of interesting stuff. So the first one I want to do is for Courtney. How can I juggle saving money while I'm trying to pay down debt too?
Yeah, trying to juggle competing priorities such as paying down debt and savings can be tricky. When it comes to deciding which to focus on, remember that it shouldn't be all one or the other, both matter. So, while establishing your priorities, first and foremost, make sure that you're always making the minimum payments on each of your debts. Next, prioritize building a cash buffer for emergency savings. That extra cushion can save you from having to go more into debt on, say, a credit card for an unexpected expense. If you can, set aside 5% of your income to help build a cash buffer of $1,000 or 1 month's worth of expenses. To calculate how much to save from each paycheck, multiply your take-home pay times 0.05. If this number is out of reach, that's okay. Just choose a specific dollar amount per paycheck and stick to it for, let's say, 3 months. Then put every extra dollar you can toward your debt. At the end of the 3 months, reevaluate and start again. Once you have a comfortable cash cushion, it makes sense to start paying down your high interest debt, especially credit card debt. After you've taken care of your credit card debt, turn back to building up your emergency savings until you have a comfortable 3 to 6 months worth of expenses set aside for an emergency. Then you can start chipping away at other debt, especially if you have any interest or with an interest rate of above 6%.
That's a really great plan to go back and forth between the priorities. And if you didn't catch all that, again, we will send out a replay to everyone who's registered and you can download slides. And I think there's actually a link to a story that talks all about this. So I want to switch to Braxton. People are wondering about investing their $1,000 or trying to make some money off their savings. I know folks can go to fidelity.com/smartmoney for tips for investing for beginners, but give us a sneak peek, Braxton. What are some tips you'd offer a newbie investor?
Right. So it really depends on, after you get that $1,000 saved, what your goals and your financial situation are. So you definitely want to understand why you're investing and really what your appetite for risk is. So I liken this to, if you know me personally, or if you don't know me personally, welcome to me. I hate flying. I do not like it. I get nervous. I don't like what I feel like that pilot has direct control of that plane. And I feel like he just goes through turbulence just to drive me crazy, right? A lot of people feel very similar about the stock market. So they have that similar fear. And you really have to understand what your appetite for risk is when you're investing, because you could potentially lose money. Now, if you're thinking about investing in things like stocks, your goal needs to be far enough in the future to weather those ups and downs, right? Liken that to our example that we just spoke about earlier. If I'm going 2 hours away to my mom's house, I'm not going to take a plane. I'm probably just going to drive. So I'm probably not going to use investments when I've got a shorter term goal that are more aggressive to get me to where I want to go. I'm going to use something more conservative like that, the options that we provided to you earlier. So just thinking through that is important. We got a lot of resources available to you. I do think you should look at fidelity.com/smart money. But if you don't feel comfortable managing your own investments or flying that plane on your own, then we can help you build a plan that aligns to your financial situation. And we can also hire a pilot for you. So you just let us know. We're happy to help.
Fidelity sure can do that. So 2 breaking questions that are coming in from the audience right now, both clarifying questions. So Courtney, for emergency savings, is that 3 to 6 months of essential expenses based on gross or net income? Can you talk to me a little bit about that? And like, is the emergency fund people always hear about the same as 3 to 6 months of essential expenses?
I think it matters less which you choose, whether it's net or gross, and it matters more that you specifically tell your money where to go instead of being surprised by where it went. So, as long as you are intentional about which method you're choosing and why you're choosing it, you have my full support to make that decision. The way I think through 3 to 6 months worth of expenses is, if I lost all income in my home, how much money would I need to live comfortably for those 3 or 6 months?
Correct. And I fully agree with you, Courtney. I like the idea. In my head, I think of it as net, but more of it is the principle. The idea that, God forbid, we live in an area where we're prone to many natural disasters down here in Florida. I know unequivocally and beyond the shadow of a doubt that, God forbid, if something happens and we had a travesty take place, that I have a set of funds set aside to be able to cover that emergency. So that, I think, more of the principle is the goal.
Got it. Thank you. And here's a quick one for you, Braxton.
Sure.
Can somebody have multiple brokerage accounts?
I think you can. I think you can. I think it really depends on your level of discipline and understanding about your own financial situation. Sometimes it can become counterproductive. I am not one to overcomplicate things, right? So the smaller amount of accounts, the better for me. I think that works out very well for me. Mom did a really good job of making me focus in on 1 or 2 things at a time. So for me, I mean, having multiple brokerage accounts is fine as long as you are aware of what the goal for each specific account is and where you're trying to get to. No issues with that at all. It's fine.
Cool. All right, here's another one for Courtney. How can I save money without making myself miserable? The person who asked this said, please don't tell me to skip my daily coffee and make it at home. I need other saving suggestions, and my $4 coffee makes me very happy. And Courtney, don't tell me to skip my soft serve vanilla ice cream on summer weekends. So what do you say, Courtney?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. If a daily coffee or an occasional ice cream brings you joy, please don't get rid of that. We earn money to spend it, and we want to ensure that our money is being spent in alignment with our priorities. So think through what's bringing you joy, think through where you're spending your money, and see if there are any trims that can be made without sacrificing your quality of life. With regard to tactically saving, I'm a big believer in separate accounts and automation. I like to make really good decisions one time to put my money into a separate account for my goal, and then set it up to automatically deduct from my paycheck or another account regularly in the future. And I want to take that making the decision every paycheck off of my plate, because as we discussed earlier, decision fatigue is real. So let's make the decision one time and then let it ride.
Courtney, I have one last question for you. This will be the last audience question before we wrap up. What are some strategies to pay down debt? Courtney, have at it.
Yeah, so there are two main strategies, and I don't know who comes up with these names, but here we go. There is the snowball method and the avalanche method. So, in the snowball method, you start by paying extra on the debt with the smallest balance until it's paid off. Then you move to the next card with the next smallest balance and the next one after that. Continue this until all of your cards are paid off. The benefit of this method is it helps to build momentum and it feels good to see those zero balances, right? Every time you get a card paid off, like, yes, and you get this dopamine rush, it's an amazing feeling. The avalanche method, you start by paying extra on the card with the highest interest rate until that one's paid off. And then you go to the next one and the next one and the next one. You always want to make the minimum payments on all of your cards, regardless of the method that you choose. But you continue this approach until all of your debts are paid off. The benefit to this method is that if you stick to it, you may save money on interest, especially if your cards have a wide range of interest rates. Keep in mind that you don't just have to stick to one method. You can choose one for a while, see how it's working out for you, switch anytime. What matters is that you stay engaged and focused on the process of paying down your debts.
In our last few minutes, I want to give each of our panelists a chance to share their final thoughts. Courtney, what's the number one thing you want viewers to take away today?
An emergency savings account is the most important piece, in my opinion, of a solid financial plan. Start where you can, automate as much as you can, and remember, consistency compounds. When it comes to money, time is the greatest gift you can give yourself. And if you need to, start small and make tiny adjustments as you can. When you have an emergency savings account fully funded, decide on your next goal and start the process again.
And Braxton, you're getting a lot of love in the comments. People want to set up an appointment with you. I know that you have a special kind of client that you tend to deal with, but is there a way for them to get in touch with you personally?
Ooh, we're gonna have to work on that. I don't
Okay.
have social media. I'm sure my cousin's gonna yell at me to work on that.
Cool.
But
All right.
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I promise.
Sounds
I'm
good. Any last tips from you? Any last tips from you?
Yeah. So take it seriously. Right. Take it seriously. Your financial health is paramount to your overall feelings of success and being whole. Right. So that's we definitely want to take it seriously, but we also have to give ourselves grace. Like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're not going to be able to get there overnight, but just know you have our support. We are here. There are professionals that are here to assist you and to aid you on your journey. And I'm really proud of everybody for even taking this step. Thank you for being here with us today.
Well, that's a wrap. Thank you to our panelists for sharing their ideas today for saving up $1,000 and then putting it to good use. And thanks to you, our audience, for tuning in today. However you were feeling about your finances before you joined our event, we hope you're feeling more prepared and empowered to take action to help reduce your expenses, bring in more earnings, and start saving. We also hope you have plenty of ideas on where to stash your savings so your money works harder for you. At the end of the slide deck that you can download right now, you'll find links to articles featuring the tips on spending less that we shared today. And if you want more tips about spending, saving, and investing, and who doesn't, sign up for the weekly Smart Money newsletter at fidelity.com/smartmoney sign up. Thanks again for being here and have a great day.